And then what's going to happen is I'm going to pause for a second and see me pop up, and people will get half of this conversation. And then I'll actually say, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to The Lore Reloaded. Always a pleasure and fun to see you guys here. Today we got a special treat. We got Pensky File, or the Pensky Files. You guys may know them as the best podcast ever to be known. Soon to be recognized by CBS and probably be the richest people that we'll ever know. So you guys want to introduce yourselves and say hi and all of that good stuff?
Hi, my name's Richard Pensky, and this is File.
I'm Wes, and just to get the CBS stuff out of the way, I'm Wes, and I hate Star Trek Discovery, so that'll be the starting point. No, but thanks for having us, Lore. We're much appreciative to branch out and go other places and to see other audiences and stuff. But we run a Star Trek podcast is the main thing we do, which is called the Pensky Podcast, which is a terrible name for a Star Trek podcast, but it's what we've got.
Locked into that one early by accident.
We've been doing like 6 years at this point. We've covered TNG, TOS, DS9, Lower Decks, Picard, and now we're on Star Trek Discovery's 3rd season. We do the typical sort of Star Trek, or not Star Trek, but like TV show podcast thing, where it's one episode per podcast, kind of a critical analysis. And I guess that the show is, the point of the show is what we've kind of stumbled into is I would say a critical analysis of Star Trek. So it's the greatest compliment that we ever get is that people would say, we don't have rose-colored glasses towards this. We tend to like the show when it's good, and we don't like the show or the series when it's bad. And people generally find the show to be fairly fair, or critical in a fair way. Anyway, so that's how I would describe what we do. And Clay has been a host for a couple of years now at this point. It started off as like a guesting thing where random people would come on, but Clay is now the full-time guest host, and that's pretty much it.
How many people?
My way up from being a featured player into the main cast of the Pensky.
That's right.
Basically, yeah. I mean, how many people have asked you why you review it if you hate it so much? Do you get that at all?
Discovery?
Any of it? Yeah, Star Trek in general.
I
But
like
probably
Star
for
Trek.
Discovery. I know, but how many
like-
people say? How many people have asked you, why do you hate this? Why do you watch it if you hate it so much? Like that's a common thing for YouTube.
I don't feel like
go ahead,
really,
Clay.
I was just say I don't really feel like we get too much of that because I think the
Get it once in a while. We do get
Yeah.
it once in a while, but it's not a major theme on the comments or feedback or anything.
Yeah, because I think the stuff that we don't like, we're not going into it to hate watch it or anything like that. It's just I think we both find it interesting to dissect from a structural point of view and a storytelling point of view and stuff like that. And since Star Trek is something that we both really enjoy, we go in. I would say, at least I have gone in just as hard on an episode of TNG that I didn't think was particularly good as I do on Discovery. Not recently, because it's been a while since we've done TNG, but we seem to be stuck in the Discovery. I think that's what parts. Maybe if it comes off angry at all, maybe it's because we've just been in a Discovery slog for the past 12 weeks or so. But
It's been slow.
I think generally people realize that we are not coming at it from a point of malice or anything like that, which I hope comes across, because that's not. I've never wanted it to come off as though we're doing it just to be mean at be mad about something, be mean at something.
I would say 95% of the audience that we have, at least on YouTube and Twitter and stuff at this point for Discovery, generally agrees with us. There's probably like a 10% that modulate it and like the show a little bit, and then so it's probably like 80, 10, and 10. There's probably 10% that really like it and have a hard time with our analysis of it, and there's probably another 10 that they think it's okay, maybe would be the best description of it. And then I think the majority of our audience tends to agree with us, but it's hard to say outside of like YouTube comments what that really means.
Right.
And also, Wes, I think, actively hates Discovery now. I actually do enjoy watching the show. I don't particularly like it, but I do enjoy watching it as a piece of Star Trek content.
Sure. Well, one of the things that I found interesting was that you were critical of what I call legacy Trek. which is generally pre-JJ verse and all of that good stuff. And even if you actively hate it, you do seem to come off fair, or at least hold a standard to the same. Because a lot of the well, I don't even like to call it. A lot of people who attack Discovery either do it for, let me rephrase that. A lot of people that I've encountered who dislike Discovery, especially if they're on the internet and they have a YouTube channel or they have their own podcast or whatnot. Not you guys, obviously. Do it because they're either in this hate circle that they don't realize that they're just hating something just to hate it. They're not actually looking at it objectively, or I think they're grifting or trying to get money off of it. But when I did an analysis of what you guys do, you really do come off as fair. So that's why I wanted to have you on and have a discussion, because I enjoy. That's what the channel is for. I enjoy talking about things with people who disagree. So let's jump into that for a second. I saw a clip. Since then, I've watched more of your stuff. But what really got my attention was I was actually doing a live stream like this, and I happened to come across one of your clips, and it was about Admiral Vance, which I thought you guys were extremely uncharitable with. But it does come into what we're talking about. Is Discovery Season 3 an improvement?
The title of that clip is called "Did Star Trek Discovery Neuter Admiral Vance?" which is a very evocative title, which is the point. But yeah,
well,
my point
that's
generally.
The game.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, I mean,
no, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I thought it wasn't even the title, because that's the game. I don't really look at the title. I look at the content more than anything else. And again, we'll look at it overall. We don't have to discuss that title specifically, but is Discovery Season 3 an improvement? I do think that it is an improvement when you look at anything from digital cinematography to dialogue to the lore to the characters, anywhere from Michael Burnham to the Admiral himself. I think that every aspect of it is better than what came before. Now, I'd be interested, especially because Wes, I'm horrible with names, so I'm going to get you guys confused all the time. Don't get upset about it. But why do you think it's not an improvement? Do you think it's not an improvement from a real world standpoint, or the actual story, the arcs? Why do you think it's Season 2 effectively? Or I can give you my thoughts on why I think it's better, since I'm the positive claim, if you prefer.
Yeah, well, let me say something quick. I was actually more interested in having you go first, because me and Clay have been talking on the last podcast that we did. We're not quite sure where the positivity specifically comes from, which is kind of a criticism that we have of people who generally like the show. So what I will say is that, in my opinion, and then Clay can, I guess, speak quickly, is that this is the worst season of a bad show that's always been bad. And in my opinion, Season 2 was better than this one, mostly because of technical reasons. And I think that what Season 3 was trying to do was move out of the shadow of canon, which I think that the show is responding to in a fan feedback sense of, like, we have to escape this major problem that a lot of people who I think unfairly criticize Discovery say that all the problems are due to canon inconsistency that the show has. So what they did is they jumped into a future world where canon can't really exist at that point, and they can blaze their own path. But what they've done this season is actually taken a step back in terms of everything that was a problem in the earlier seasons, which is pacing, character development, understanding story structure, understanding, like, technically how you're supposed to tell a story, understanding how to tell a story in a way that makes sense and makes the audience actually invested in what's going on. And then finally, just a failure at world building is the other big catastrophe that sort of set back Season 3. Clay, if you wanted to add on to that, but I would like to hear you, Lore, give a positive thing first that I could actually respond to. I think it's a little bit better or more interesting for me, and to hear your side first.
Yeah, I would agree pretty much with everything Wes said. I have never thought that the show fails on a technical level. I think it looks amazing. I think the design, well, I have problems with the design this season, but generally I think the design is fantastic. It looks really good. It's all been storytelling problems for me, essentially. And I think Season 2, oddly enough, was more focused in what they were trying to do than this one. And I agree that jumping to the future seemed like it was going to be this fresh start, but they really just kind of never got off the starting blocks for me.
I don't know what outside of canon means. If you mean not being beholden to what's come before, I would agree. It's still, or maybe we need to define what canon is. I honestly just think the literal opposite of almost everything you just said. So when we look at season 1, season 2 versus season 3, one of the things that Trek tried was a focus, unusual focus on a specific character, that of Michael Burnham. We've seen that in DS9, and maybe the original series to a degree, but not at the levels that we were seeing in season 1 and season 2. In season 3, they've made it more ensemble. More characters have gotten to expand, both primary characters and secondary characters, in my opinion. I was not a huge fan of the first episode, but I think since episode 2 and on, everything has had somewhat of a logical progression. Seeing how the universe has turned out seems consistent, or logically consistent, with what we know of the individual species and such. I think that the United Earth makes some sense. Trill, we don't know a lot about, but that seemed to. Vulcan and the Romulans becoming Navarre, I think that was inevitable in everything we've seen beforehand. I will agree. It depends on what you mean by pacing. When you say pacing, there are some episodes that are problematic on the way that it's written from a pacing standpoint. And maybe it's not pacing that I'm thinking about. I do believe that there are a few things they should have expanded on and taken a little more time with. As an example, in the last episode, which I'm sure you guys have seen, but if for those watching, if you haven't seen it, spoilers. In the last episode, we learn a lot about the Emerald Chain that really we should have learned over the season, not just a dialogue between Vance and Asira, right? But I think that's a wonderful expansion of the Emerald Chain. I like the fact that it's not the same hats that we've always had. Like in TNG and DS9, you have the bad guy hat. The Dominion effectively have the bad guy hat. Ferengi and Romulans in TNG generally had the bad guy. Well, no, they did good with Romulans. The Ferengi had the bad guy hat in TNG, right? And so we now have a more nuanced way of looking at it. You even have Michael taking a step back, both from the dialogue and the script and in universe, and letting others breathe and realizing it's not just all about her.
But they all came back for her.
They all didn't come back for her. No. Are you talking about the latest episode?
Stamets, yeah. Stamets is less. Would you think that Stamets is wrong? I guess from that point.
I think that's nuanced. I think Stamets was angry. I think he was screaming. I think he thought he was about to lose his husband and his. I'm not a huge fan of Adira being his daughter. I'll be honest. But I think he thought he was losing his family. And so he was saying anything he could to stop her or to hurt her. And this is one of the issues. I think that really hits on it. There's so much more nuance than just what is said on screen, that if you just take it at its word, it's definitely cringe. But that's a perfect example. He was angry. If you go back and you watch why they went through it, and again, this is season 2, so it's not the best. They went through it because they needed to keep the Seer AI from getting into the hands of anyone of that time. They went through it as a sacrifice. They didn't do it for Michael, at least in theory.
Why did they all go? Why didn't just Michael go with the data?
Hey.
Why did they all choose to go?
Hey, my friend, you will not see me defending season 2. I can tell you why they went through the wormhole, though. There's definitely better ways of doing it. They could have actually sent it by itself. I agree. But the reason why they went through it was to get Discovery out of the 23rd century, so that it can't be used, so that another control couldn't come through. Now they followed. Right. Now they made Michael this Messiah, right? Where they have to follow her through. That's the only way to do it. But they didn't go through for her.
But why wouldn't they just send it by itself? If they're not going through for Michael, why are the other characters going through?
As I said, I will not defend season 2. I think there were better ways of them doing it.
Sure, but you can see my problem here. That why would you doubt that what Stamets is saying is false?
Because that's not what the story tells us. When we watch the story, when we watch the dialogue between Pike, Saru, Michael, and everyone else, they had to get Discovery out of that universe. So they all decided that they were going to go through the wormhole to get it away from any bad person that was going to use it. They sent it into the future. I mean, that's what they said. If you choose not to accept, if you personally interpret that,
No,
that
I'm
all
not.
of them
I'm
follow.
I'm not denying that they sent Discovery into the future to do that. I understand that that's why they would do that. Clay, do you
Sure.
do you understand what I'm saying?
I think we're splitting hairs over one of the better elements of this season so far. I think it's whether or not they actually went through for specifically for Michael. I think that scene works in the way it was presented.
Even if they did, sorry, I don't want to interrupt, and you can go, Clay, but I just want to add, and you guys can interrupt me anytime. Even if they did do that for Michael, that's a failing of season 2, not season 3, in my opinion. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Clay. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I don't think I think that scene was a good scene, and I think it was effective that's a great thing to stab Michael with if you really want to get her riled up or really get her between the ribs, because obviously she feels responsible for them coming to the future and whatnot. So that scene, I think, that's a good moment. I think the problem is, for me anyway, that this season, while they have opened up the characters, as you said, they haven't really done anything with them that I find to be successful storytelling. For instance, they go out of their way this season to be very meta and self-aware, and then just kind of like leave that on your lap and don't really do anything with that. They've mentioned multiple times that Michael has this messiah complex, or everything has to be about her, and she's like, yeah, that's how it is. Anyway, moving on. And then they don't do anything that subverts that or makes that a lesson to be learned or anything. They have her go to the future, and she grows her hair, and all of a sudden she's a new character who acts so different because she spent 12 months in Europe or whatever it is. But she hasn't really changed. She's not doing anything. She's not more aggressive than she's been. She's not acting any differently. Nothing she's done this season has been any different than a decision she'd make any other season. So I haven't really felt any movement there. And as far as the season as a whole, it's the stuff that they have focused on. You said there's a lot of stuff that's you have to kind of read between the lines. Let's look at the Osira and Emerald Chain stuff. On paper, sure, great idea. But the fact that they just backload that all into a single scene does not, from a storytelling standpoint, I do not find that satisfying, and I do not think that is a good storytelling mechanic, because we've spent 10 minutes across 12 episodes so far with Osira and the Emerald Chain, and we don't really know anything about her aside from the fact that she's the space pirate. And then in this episode, she drops that. I mean, the last couple episodes, she's found out that they have a spore drive, somehow figured out how to recreate it because she has a science institute. And it's all this stuff that is just, it's not earned exposition they're giving you. It's just, we need to facilitate this moment that we want to have. So here's all the information you need. And it's not really backed up by any work they've done for the rest of the season.
I'll throw my general point or criticism of Discovery is that it's purely a failure of storytelling. I think that if you compare Discovery to any other TV show, I don't watch a tremendous amount of TV, but like Discovery is, I would almost argue, like objectively the worst at telling a single story. It's kind of strange how bad it is. And what the problem is that we talked about this in our latest podcast. There's a thing called the story arc, right? Which is that there's exposition, which leads into rising action, which has a climax, and then it comes back down in the release, and then there's a resolution to your story. Discovery fails on both a serial and episode by episode basis, where it can't get this done. So what Discovery tends to do is it has a tremendous amount of exposition, and then it never has a rising action sequence where things get worse for your heroes or things change in some way that actually makes you rethink what's actually been happening to the story and the characters. It jumps from exposition to climax, and then it just reboots itself. And it says, here's some more information for you. Now we're going to climax again. Here's some more information. Book lives on a planet with firefly things. Let's go meet his family. You meet his brother. His brother says, we have a lot of bad blood. Here's a whole bunch of exposition about why we have bad blood. climax, they solve it, and they're friends again. Discovery rinses and repeats that storytelling endlessly, and it's extremely unsatisfying. They did it in the serial story this year, which is The Burn, which I think is pathetic and has been the major reason why this has been such a terrible season. The Burn is not an interesting mystery. If you solve the Burn, nothing changes in the universe for the characters. You just learn information. So all they've been doing is a breadcrumb mystery of dropping these clues about what happened with the Burn. Here's a little information. Here's a little bit more. All this amounts to is exposition. It's not changing anything for the characters. It's not learning anything about Burnham. It's not learning anything about Vance. It's not learning anything about what the Federation needs to be, why the Federation exists in this world, how the Federation exists in the future, what does the Federation believe, what compromises do the Federation need to make in order to survive in this new universe. All the Burn is just drops of exposition with eventually a climax. And people always tell you, wait till they get to the truth. Wait till they figure out what happened with the Burn. It's all going to save the season. No season of Discovery has ever been saved by its reveal in the end. It's always just been a lame march down this exposition pathway. And so you get to the end, and you're like, okay, a little Kelpian yelled, and it shut off all the dilithium. And you go, but it's just, what does that change about the universe? What changes about that story when you learn the answer to that mystery? Nothing. And so it's a whole waste of 12 hours to get to that point, in my opinion.
And
so you guys aren't fans of the original series, The Next Generation, and Voyager?
In what sense?
So everything you just described to me occurs in every one of those. Deep Space Nine was a little bit different, I think. I'll agree that the payoff for the Burn was, at best, lackluster, and like you said, at worst, laughable. Like a child. They basically X-Men'd it, ultimately, because he was in her stomach and his DNA changed because they were surrounded by radiation, and now he's one with dilithium. I'm not a huge fan of that either. But the storytelling is basically the same that we see in all of the others, with a few moments of greatness where they go outside of that. Like The Best of Both Worlds, I think, is a great example of that.
Sorry, what's the argument? That there's a lot of bad Star Trek episodes?
What I'm saying is they're formulaic of all of Trek. So what you described is what happens in the original series, Next Generation.
No, but I'm not saying this is bad because it's a formula. No. I'm saying that this is bad because structurally they're not following good storytelling techniques.
Yeah, but that's I would... Good storytelling is an argument in and of itself, because there's all kinds of different theories for that. But I agree, the theory that you're proposing is probably the best. That's why everyone uses it. But it's what they do in the... So why is Discovery something you focus on when I could show you season 1, season 2, most all seasons of TNG that do it? Why is it just... Is it because that's what we're focusing? So you've covered it, and you would say the same about TNG then, if they do the same formula.
I don't think it's not a formulaic issue, because I mean, if you look at the way that they've presented the Burn storyline, the first thing that I think of watching this is nobody bothered to look into this for 150 years or however long it is, because Discovery shows up and in like a weekend they figure everything out.
It wasn't
in a way that nobody else bothered to do, and they don't even even when they show up and they start wanting to get into it, Federation doesn't even really care that much.
I mean, that's a little unfair, though. I'm sorry, Clay. I don't mean... I'll stop interrupting you if it's upsetting you, but I think that's unfair.
No, it's the steps that they've taken to get... At least if you want to compare it to season 2, at least the Red Angel story had like an ethos behind it, and they had stories that were built off of the eventual teasing out of what this was going to be, whether or not you were satisfied with the outcome. You had episodes like when Pike and when they go to that what the hell's the name of the planet with the
New Eden.
Red Angel, New Eden. When they go to New Eden, they have a story that has themes that they talk about that is related to this expanding out and furthering of the Red Angel story. Whereas with this one, 80% of the stuff that you get about the Burn happens off screen, essentially. Like they get like 2 black boxes, and then even they draw it out.
The Vulcan info.
The Vulcan thing. They draw out essentially the fact that Adira forgot to carry the 1 in an algorithm for like 3 episodes or 2 episodes, and it's just not. There's nothing there. It's not.
Forgot to carry the 1. What do you mean in that?
Well,
She says she gets tired. One of the reasons that they haven't been able to track it for some reason, it delays the progress in getting the burn for an episode because Stamets says you haven't been sleeping, and she makes they make a mistake.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
and
I was just making sure I was on the same page.
Yeah, ultimately, this story, which is supposed to be, this is the through line for your season, I do not feel has any real contextual or thematic weight to any of the stories they've been telling, whereas season 2, for better or worse, the Red Angel story did.
Okay, so let's address a couple of things because there's a lot you guys have put on the plate. Let's first, them not figuring it out. We don't know what exactly they did or tried beforehand. Now you could say that that is a problem with the writing or the storytelling. I think it's arguable if that's something that needs to be gone into given what they were trying to go for. But what was it, like 2/3 of the fleet was gone, or 80% of the fleet is gone, or something like that? Like a massive amount of Starfleet is just destroyed. So them not looking into it immediately and them trying to handle the situation and survive. Yeah, but I mean, they've been trying to survive for 100 years. If the United States military was reduced to only being able to defend Tennessee, Alabama, and Kentucky, then them figuring out what happened isn't like, let's say it was destroyed for some unknown reason. Them figuring out what's happened versus trying to just keep their people alive, even for 100 years, is understandable. I mean, space is vast. One of the things I think, and you guys correct me on this because I could be wrong, the origin of the burn was a long way away, right? Didn't Osira have to use the courier network to even get there? It was like stupidly far away. So them not being able to find it, I don't necessarily have a huge issue.
But the pieces, the pieces they put together to get there required like calculations done by a ship that's 1,000 years old. They basically pulled out 2 points and they were like, triangulate this and triangulate this, and then they went to Vulcan and asked them for like a disk drive.
The third
disk drive. I like the way you guys.
Clay's point is that nothing special needed to be done for Discovery to solve this. This wasn't some sort of like Michael Burnham or Discovery is innately capable of figuring out what happened with the burn. They found black boxes.
Sure.
The Federation apparently wasn't interested in finding the black boxes for things that I would disagree. Like
they're trying to survive.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Again, if I get annoying, I'm not trying. So you guys just tell me to stop. They're just trying to live. Are you saying that they should try to find these black boxes and find out where it is, or feed the people that need to be fed? Right? They have guy hasn't even eaten. Go ahead.
Okay, so backing up 2 seconds then. Does that mean would you say that finding out what caused the burn is an important thing to figure out?
I would say
in universe.
Yes.
I would say with what's presented to us, they have more immediate issues they have to take care of. I would say that while I would agree trying to figure out is something that could be vital, they simply don't have that option.
Why is the burn the centerpiece of this story, of this season? If it's not
because with Discovery at this point and the resources Discovery has, first off, I think Michael was wrong. So Michael, one of the things she was saying is like, there's no way that Starfleet can be whole until we found out what happened with the burn, right? A Kelpian child having a crying fit doesn't help Starfleet. So Michael was wrong, in my opinion. But there are a couple of advanced things that they have with Discovery that they didn't have beforehand. First off, they have an outsider's point of view. For over 100 years, they've just been trying to survive and hope to God that they don't get destroyed by the Emerald Chain. And trying to feed their people using their own excrement to do so, right? That's how desperate they are. Secondly, the Discovery is more than just an old ship, right? It has original databases that they didn't have access to. It also has the Seer AI that help them find that can help them find various things. That can help them out, which again, the Federation didn't have. They additionally now have access to the courier network. Again, they've been so focused on trying to survive, they haven't reached out to other people who could help them. It's because Michael went and started looking and used the courier network within the Emerald Chain, something Starfleet can't access, that they were able to even get the black boxes.
But Michael
So
did
I
it
think-
without Discovery. She didn't have Discovery when she found the black boxes.
Well, sure. I don't disagree with that, but you're asking, the point was, what did Discovery add to it? But yes, Michael did do things without Discovery. I agree.
So
Also,
it's interesting.
one other thing. Starfleet didn't have the ability to have an earnest conversation. Not a huge fan of the way they went about this, but I like the concept. Starfleet didn't have the ability to have a conversation with Navarre or the Vulcans because of what they had done in their past, which was vital to them figuring it out as well.
Why? Why weren't they able to have an earnest conversation?
Because, and it discussed it in the episode, when Navarre and Vulcan were there, when it was still Vulcan. No, it became Navarre at that point, didn't it? Yeah. The Federation Council had pushed Navarre to create this technology so that they didn't have to rely on dilithium
not the
anymore.
reason for the conflict. Why can't they talk to Navarre? Why
Because
can't they-
Navarre cut off all diplomatic relations after that. Navarre blamed the Federation and Starfleet for doing it, left Starfleet, and cut off all diplomatic conversations. It was only because, and again, I'm not a huge fan of the way that they fixed it, but it was all because of Michael being related to Spock that Navarre even talks to Starfleet. Starfleet couldn't reach out to them at all. Unless I may have missed something. Maybe they already had. If they already had diplomatic communications, maybe that's my side. But that was my understanding.
I think there's a schism here between how we're looking at this, right? So Discovery to me could break canon constantly, every single episode, and be a great TV show. It could be a great Star Trek show if it just completely ignored canon and was irrelevant to the details of the Romulans and the Vulcans and everything like that. I don't put priority on the connections of the plot here. I'm not super concerned about whether or not the details that someone like Stamets says something under his breath in one episode and it ties back in later. My fundamental issue is that I don't understand why they're telling me this story about the burn. If in your opinion the burn is irrelevant to the Federation, why is Discovery looking after this? If the whole point of jumping ahead is to show us that there's been a Federation that's been compromised somehow because of what this dilithium shortage has done to it, the show has not done that. I don't know anything about the Federation, and you're saying that there's a lot of blanks that could be filled in. These are huge storytelling blanks that need to be filled in for the story to make sense. If you're not going to build the world, show me what the Federation is in this new universe where they are somehow like the show insists that the Federation has become compromised. I would argue they are not compromised at all. All they can do is not go places, but they still try. The Federation and Vance in this season are good people who try to do the right thing constantly. They have not had to make any kind of hard ethical choice about things to change. Discovery has not illuminated anything for them. All it's done is found a black box and said, this is the way forward. And there's no introspection in this show. It doesn't care about what the stuff is going on underneath the surface. It doesn't care about the world building. It doesn't care about this. The only reason this story would be interesting to me is what does the Federation look like when it's been compromised and it has to make changes? And Burnham and Discovery, coming from a nobler past, come into that and say, no, this is not the way. Let us show you the way. And the Federation maybe has a good argument for the way that they are because of this dilithium shortage. They have to hoard the dilithium, something like that. Discovery is just unsatisfying to me in what it chooses to pursue in terms of what the story is supposed to be about. Clay, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say.
Can you give me hold that thought? Give me 1 second, Clay. I have to hook up my headset. Just 1 second. But
sure.
Hold that thought. I want to hear you.
I would just if you...
One more second, sorry guys. Now this thing decides to die. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, continue, Clay. Hey, he's roboting on my side. Is that happening to you too, Wes? No, it's all happening on my side. Both of you guys are roboting on me. Give me a second. Smooth as butter. I heard it was smooth as butter. Give me a second. Yeah, I don't even think they can hear you guys now. Oh my god. Let me call you back. Give me a second. Alright. Then let me turn this on. Okay, that sounds good to me. I exited and came back in. And then... Alright, you guys talk one more time. Yeah, I think it was all on my side. Still robot. Let me see if they can hear you guys too. Man, of course we'd have these problems. It's being recorded. I'll send it to him, so we can do it that way too. He'll still get it. One quick second. Guys, can you hear? Let me know. They're still muted. Why are you guys muted? What did you do to my... How did you mess up my thing? Of course this would happen. I can hear you, but they can't, which is what's weird. Yeah. Hold on. Let's see if that fixes it up. It did just happen. It's going through OBS. What's happening is it's not feeding through OBS, and that's why it's having issues. So I'm going to try one other thing real quick, which is why I'm getting further away from you guys. Sure. Hold on, let me do one other thing too. Everyone knows where the roads run. You don't have to say. All right, one more thing we'll try. I'm sorry, guys. It's so weird that it did. The one time I have you guys on is the one time that it's going to do that. All right. Let's do it this way. We'll do it live. All right. All right, say something. All right, that actually should fix it. People should be hearing it now. One in the chat if you can hear them. You should be able to. Now, lore is dubbed. That's okay, I can do this. Watch. That should fix it for everybody too. They should be able to hear me as well. Really? Still can't hear you guys. Row. I like you guys. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I don't care what the internet says. I like you guys. All right. Start talking again. Go to the future. All right. Start talking again. All right, guys. So what we're going to do on this one is I am going to continue having this conversation with them, and then we'll do an upload of it. Man, a lot of people are watching too. That's unfortunate. But that's okay. Check them out at Pensky File, and yeah, Pensky Penskyfile.com. Is there a way for them to subscribe to you guys? Is there a subscribe button, or do they just go there? Okay. Okay.